There comes a moment in every man's life when he looks back and realizes he gave too much, said too much, or chased too hard, not because he was weak, but because no one ever told him what not to do. This video is that warning, a calm but firm reminder of what you must avoid. If you want to be respected, not just liked, if you've ever felt like something was off in how women respond to you, but couldn't explain why, this is your wake-up call. We're not here to play games or speak with bitterness. We're here to speak with clarity, with discipline, and with strength. These are the 8 things a man should never do with a woman. Not because you fear her reaction, but because you respect yourself too much to lower your standard. Let's begin. 1. Never over-explain yourself to a woman. A man who constantly feels the need to justify his actions, his choices, or his silence, is a man who is not fully rooted in his own authority. When you over-explain, what you're really doing is asking for permission. You're trying to manage her perception of you instead of simply living in alignment with your values. This reveals anxiety. It shows you fear disapproval more than you value your own clarity. Stoic strength doesn't speak to be understood by everyone. It speaks only when necessary, and lets the silence carry the rest. If your intentions are clean and your actions are grounded in reason, you do not owe anyone a lengthy justification. Not every decision needs an explanation. Not every choice demands approval. When a man respects himself, he becomes comfortable with being misunderstood. He knows that his integrity speaks louder than his words. And in a world full of men who explain too much, the one who can move quietly and confidently without apology becomes magnetic. 2. Never seek validation from a woman. When a man chases approval, he gives away his power. Every compliment fishing, every text sent just to see if she'll respond, every moment you try to impress her instead of standing firm in who you are, these things erode your strength. A woman may smile at the attention, but she does not respect the man who constantly needs her reassurance. Stoic men do not beg for approval. They do not rely on outside praise to feel worthy. They know who they are, and they let their actions speak for them. Seeking validation is a silent confession of insecurity, and the more you do it, the more invisible you become. Instead, build your identity from within. Be the kind of man who can walk away without explaining himself, who can stand in silence without craving applause. Because when your worth no longer depends on her reaction, she feels it, and she starts to wonder why your presence feels so solid, so untouchable. 3. Never argue emotionally with a woman. When a man loses his composure in an argument, when he raises his voice, reacts out of hurt, or tries to win with passion, instead of reason, he forfeits his power. Emotional outbursts may feel justified in the moment, but they erode your presence. A stoic man does not fight for dominance through noise. He defends his peace with silence, clarity, and restraint. Women are not impressed by emotional chaos. They observe how you handle pressure, how you respond when challenged, and if your first instinct is to react instead of reflect. She sees instability where there should be leadership. Emotional control is not weakness. It is power held in reserve. It's the ability to feel anger, disappointment, even betrayal, and still choose your response with precision. Arguments are inevitable, but how you handle them reveals who you are. Don't argue to be right. Don't argue to prove your worth. Let your calm, measured tone remind her that you are not here to be shaken. You are here to lead with discipline, with dignity, and with unshakable resolve. 4. Never fail her tests. Whether she admits it or not, every woman will test you, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with actions that seem confusing or even disrespectful. But these tests are not always about control. They are often unconscious probes to see if you are truly grounded. A man who fails these tests reacts. He gets defensive. He explains himself. He tries to fix her mood. But a man who passes them remains calm. He does not get pulled into emotional storms. He does not try to chase clarity from chaos. He simply observes. He holds frame, and he responds from a place of steady control. Stoic men understand this. Truth tests are not a threat. They are an invitation to prove your strength without saying a word. Every test is an opportunity to reveal how unshakable you are, not through dominance, not through arrogance, but through the quiet power of self-control. When she sees that she cannot rattle you, she begins to trust you, because she knows this is a man who cannot be moved by games, moods, or manipulation. This is a man who leads. 5. Never be too available. A man who is always ready to reply, always free to meet, always adjusting his schedule to fit hers slowly loses his value. Why? Because what is always available is rarely appreciated. Women, like all people, are drawn to what carries weight, and your time, your presence should carry weight. Stoic men understand that their energy is not something to be scattered. It is directed with purpose. When you are too available, you teach her that you have no mission, that she is your mission, and that, ironically, makes her feel less secure, not more, because a man without direction is a man adrift. Instead, build a life so focused, so mission-driven, that your time feels sacred, not because you're playing games, but because you're living with intent. When a woman sees that you protect your time, that you choose your moments instead of handing them away freely, she feels your depth, she senses your strength, and she knows this is a man who moves on purpose, not by impulse. 6. Never put her on a pedestal. The moment you elevate a woman above yourself, treating her as if she is flawless, untouchable, or more valuable than you lose balance. You distort the dynamic, and slowly, you lose her respect. Admiration is natural, but idolization is dangerous. When you place her on a pedestal, you become blind to red flags. You excuse bad behavior. You tolerate disrespect, all in the name of keeping her close. Stoic men see clearly. They do not romanticize someone to the point of self-betrayal. They understand that real connection comes from mutual respect, not worship. A woman is not a goddess to be served. She is a human being to be understood. When you put her above you, you shrink yourself. And when you shrink yourself, she feels it. Women are drawn to strength, not desperation disguised as devotion. If you want to build something real, you must meet her eye to eye, grounded, calm, and whole. Because only when you value yourself equally can she feel safe to truly value you. 7. Never make her your entire life. When a man builds his world around a woman, when she becomes his only source of joy, purpose, or identity, he creates a fragile existence. One argument, one absence, one shift in her mode, and everything begins to collapse. A Stoic man does not place his center in another person. He builds his foundation from within. His mission, his discipline, his values, these are the pillars that hold him steady. A woman can complement that life. She can walk beside it, but she should never become the core of it. When you make her your everything, you burden her with a responsibility she never asked for. To be your emotional anchor, your validation, your reason to wake up. That pressure doesn't attract her, it pushes her away. Instead, let your life be full on its own. Let your routines, your goals, and your peace be untouchable. Then, if she walks in, she finds a man who is already whole, not one who needs her to survive, but one who chooses her without losing himself. That's the kind of strength she feels and respects. Osem, never apologize too much. There is strength in owning your mistakes, but weakness in constantly bending just to keep the peace. A man who apologizes excessively, who says sorry to avoid discomfort, who backtracks even when he's done nothing wrong, slowly trains others to see him as unsure and easily swayed. Apologies should be rare and meaningful, not routine and empty. Stoic men take full responsibility when they've truly acted out of line, but they do not apologize for speaking truth. They do not apologize for setting boundaries, and they do not apologize for living by principles. Over-apologizing comes from fear, a fear of conflict, of being disliked, of losing someone's approval. But the man who is ruled by fear cannot lead himself, much less anyone else. Instead of constantly asking for forgiveness, let your integrity be your shield. Make your choices with calm precision. And if someone doesn't like your stance, let them wrestle with it on their own, because a man who moves with quiet conviction does not need to explain or apologize for his strength. He simply lives it, every day, without hesitation. In the end, it all comes down to this: respect yourself first. When you hold your frame, when you stop chasing validation, when you refuse to explain yourself just to be accepted, you rise above the noise. You become the kind of man who leads with calm presence, who speaks less, but carries more, who sees clearly through the games, the manipulation, and the tests, and chooses strength, silence, and purpose instead. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming unshakable. A man who no longer bends just to be liked. A man who stands tall, not out of arrogance, but because he knows his worth. The world will always try to pull you off your path, through temptation, through approval, through emotion, but your power lies in remaining still, rooted, steady. If this message speaks to you, don't just listen, live it, and let your quiet strength be the loudest thing in the room. Stay grounded, stay sharp, and above all, stay true to the man you were meant to be.